South Africa's non-racial democracy is now 20 years old. We have recently elected our fifth parliament, and I thought I would trace its history using a map of South Africa made up of 400 squares, each square representing a seat in parliament. Our first parliament was elected in 1994, and the winner was fairly unsurprising. The African National Congress, led by Nelson Mandela, won a comfortable majority of 252 seats. The National Party, which had led the old, racially segregated parliament, came in second with 82 seats and became the official opposition. The Inkatha Freedom Party, a party led by a former leader in KZN from the apartheid homeland system, came third with 43 seats, mostly from its tribal Zulu base. The far right and the far left movements in South Africa largely boycotted the election, with the exception of the Freedom Front and the Pan-Africanist Congress, who gained 9 seats and 5 seats respectively. Two other parties also won seats. The Democratic Party gained 7, and the religious-based party, the African Christian Democratic Party, gained 2 seats. Nelson Mandela, by his own wish, served only one term as president, and 1999 saw our second parliament being elected under the leadership of Thabo Mbeki. The ANC extended their gains in parliament to 266 seats, just one short of the 267 seats it would require to change the constitution. This was mostly at the expense of the IFP, who lost 9 seats. The National Party rebranded itself as the New National Party to shake off its apartheid roots, but this was not enough to persuade voters from shifting to both the Democratic Party, who gained 31 seats, and a newly formed party, the United Democratic Party. The UDM, led jointly by a former National Party cabinet minister and one of the former Homeland leaders, gained 14 seats. The second parliament also saw fracturing on both the left and the right. ZAPU, who had boycotted the first parliamentary elections, gained 1 seat at the expense of the PAC, and the ironically named Afrikaner Unity Movement, or Afrikaner Eenheidsbeweging in Afrikaans, split the far right by gaining 1 seat from the Freedom Front. The ACDP also strengthened to 6 seats, and 3 other new parties also managed to enter parliament. The Minority Front, a largely Indian party led by a former leader of the apartheid-based tricameral parliament, the United Christian Democratic Party, led by a former Homeland leader in the Northwest, and the Federal Alliance, a party advocating greater federalism in our political system. The 2004 election was perhaps the least interesting of all our elections, as Thabo Mbeki entered his second term as president. The ANC won by a landslide 279 seats, reducing the IFP and NNP to 28 and 7 seats respectively. The remaining NP members took an "if you can't beat them, join them" approach and merged into the ANC. The two far-right parties also kissed and merged to form the Freedom Front Plus. The Democratic Party led a realignment of the opposition to form the Democratic Alliance by merging with the Federal Alliance and some members of the NNP. And since the idea of a new entrant seems to have now become a theme of each election, we saw a new party, the Independent Democrats, with its largely coloured voter base in the Western Cape, enter Parliament with 7 seats. If the elections were uninteresting, the third parliament certainly wasn't. This parliament saw South Africa's first big scandal in democratic times, which led to Thabo Mbeki firing his deputy, Jacob Zuma, as he faced corruption charges. However, these charges were later withdrawn, with the courts claiming political interference, and this led to Thabo Mbeki being recalled by the ANC as president. Jacob Zuma then made a play for ANC presidential candidacy, which he won, and this led us to the 2009 elections of the 4th Parliament. This Parliament also had a new entrant, the Congress of the People, or COPE. Formed by disgruntled members of the ANC following Mbeki's axing, this party gained 30 seats in its debut, which together with the further growth in the Democratic Alliance saw the ANC being pushed back again below the two-thirds majority to 264 seats. The far left fractured again as the African People's Congress split from the PAC, leaving the three far left parties with each one seat. Smaller parties IFP, UDM, ID and ACDP also saw losses as the major opposition parties unified. And little changed on the far right. The Freedom Front Plus held on to its 4 seats.
I got 1 million views. I got my own brand of shoes. I got 1 million views.
And now to 2014. Again a new entrant caused a stir. The Economic Freedom Front, formed by an expelled ANC Youth League leader who challenged Zuma, gained more than 1 million votes to get 25 seats in Parliament. It was also the first time the ANC faced a major challenge from the left. The Democratic Party, which had merged with the Independent Democrats prior to the election, also made large gains, pretty much wiping out most of the smaller parties, including COPE, who were reduced to just 3 seats. A breakaway party, the National Freedom Party, broke away from the IFP, leaving the combined seat count less than the IFPs in the previous parliament. 2 other smaller parties, Ahang South Africa and the African Independent Congress, which formed out of a protest when the provincial boundary between KZN and the Eastern Cape was amended, gained 2 and 3 seats respectively. When we look back at our parliament over 20 years, it's hard not to appreciate that South Africa's democracy, which though new, is a vibrant one. From just 7 parties, most of them from the old apartheid era, we have seen 20 parties vie and jostle for the South African voter. Our 5th parliament has 13 parties, almost double the original number, who articulate the voice of a voter base much more experienced in living in a democratic country. We've made this journey together, these 20 years as South Africans, and we hope that in our next 20 years we keep this flame of democracy alive.